Hey guys, and welcome to the Mount Sharax 20-man raid guide. The last boss is Threngar. This is a 4-phase fight. You will fight Threngar until 75%. Phase 2 is a transition phase. In phase 3, you will have 7 platforms to pass until you reach the final phase, where you fight Threngar again. We use the following raid setup: 2 tank, 1 purifier, a fist act, 2 chronomancers, a liberator, a bard or oracle, and a dom archon. You will also need 3 people able to purge, 2 or 3 mana drainers, 2 AoE reflects, and 2 single target reflects. Before I go over the mechanics, you can see 3 different colored AoEs around the boss. The green AoE will reduce the AoE damage you take by 35%, but make you immune to cleanses. You will remain in this AoE for phase 1 and 4. The red AoE will give you extra damage. For each ability you use while inside, you will get a stacking debuff that increases the damage done by 2%. But also, for each stack you will take 800 damage every second, so don't go nuts on the stacks and end up killing yourself. The blue AoE will increase the healing you do, but will give you a debuff reducing your movement speed. Here are a list of the mechanics by phase. Phase 1. You will cast Consuming Darkness. This will wipe your raid if he has enough mana. You will need players to drain the boss's mana. The first cast will come about 25 seconds into the fight. He will buff himself with Nightmare Conviction. This will make him immune to interrupts. You need to purge this. He will only cast it once in the first phase. He will cast a debuff on a random player called Conduit of Matrodon. This has 4 stacks and need to be dispelled. If you don't dispel it, the player will die once the debuff runs out. Each stack you dispel will make Threngar do a 180-degree frontal AoE damage called Erupting Darkness. This deals about 18k damage per stack. He will cast Sacrificial Offering on the tank. This needs to be interrupted. If you don't interrupt it, the tank will be shot in the air and one-shot it. He will cast Shadowglaive on the tank. This deals about 90k damage and applies a stack of Shadowglaive, increasing damage taken by 10% per stack. Tank swap on 3 stacks. He will cast Voice of Threngar. This will reduce the raid's maximum HP by 10% per stack. You can cleanse this by standing in the green AoE. He will cast an ability called Dark Binding on a random player. This is a meteor mechanic. The player with the binding won't be able to move, and you will have to stack in the black AoE to share the damage. A tank can survive this alone if needed. He will cast Manifest Horror. This will summon 3 adds called Manifesting Darkness. They do a small AoE damage around them called Dark Radiance. These adds are proximity aggro, but they respawn to taunt for the duration of it. The easiest way to handle these is to place a Defiler beacon away from the raid and pull the adds to it. He will do a massive AoE called Scream of Damnation. He will precast it for 1.3 seconds and then do the actual cast. You will need to mass reflect this. He will cast Condemn on the tank. This will increase the target's damage taken by 300% for 5 seconds. This needs to be reflected. A random player will get a debuff called Absolute Zero. When you have this, you need to run to the red AoE to dispel yourself. However, we found that the damage of this is so low that you can just ignore it. At 75%, you will reach phase 2. When Threngar reaches 75%, he will run to the middle and get a buff called Gateway of the First Nightmare. At this point, you cannot get closer to Threngar than 12 meters or further away from him than 40 meters. If you do, you will take about 30k damage each second. On the transition, you will need to watch out for the AoEs. If you stand in the green one, you will be punished by spawning an Abyssling for each player standing inside of it. If you stand in the blue one, you will get a buff called Freezing Void. This will slow you and make you drop AoEs on the ground until the end of the phase. If a player dies and you need to res him outside of the raid, because he will still be dropping the AoEs after the res. If you stand in the red AoE, you will get a buff called Star of Wrath. This is the buff you actually want to push the next phase faster. Send 2 or 3 people to the red AoE before the 75% transition happens. The players inside the red will get 1 stack of Star of the Wrath for each person inside the red. The Star of Wrath debuff will make you run really fast and do high AoE damage to all enemies around you. While you have that debuff, you cannot stand still ever. If you stand still, you will get a stacking debuff that will kill you really fast. After the transition, an add will spawn called Akvan Monstrosity. This will need to be tanked and interrupted. He has proximity aggro, so don't go closer to it than the tank. The cast you need to interrupt is Untold Horrors. If you fail to interrupt this, he will do a frontal AoE channel that will one-shot anyone. However, while he's casting it, you can move out of it. During this phase you will need a lot of AoE dispels. He will cast a debuff called Seed of Madness on 10 players. This will do about 120k damage every 1.5 seconds, so you will need to AoE cleanse that really fast. He will cast this every 5 seconds until the end of the phase. Once you kill the Aquan monstrosity, Threngar will lose his Gateway of the First Nightmare buff and phase 3 will start. In phase 3 there will be a raid wipe mechanic called Event Horizon. You will have to be inside that white safe zone to be immune to it. The last few meters of the safe zone are not the safe zone, so stay roughly 5 meters inside of it to be safe. A copy of Threngar will spawn in the middle of this platform. You can either DPS him or the Threngar in the middle of the room. It doesn't matter, the damage is shared. There will be an Abyssling spawning that needs to be tanked facing away from the raid. He has a frontal AoE that pulses damage every second. This ad is also proximity aggro. And finally the big ass Matrodrome will spawn. He also needs to be tanked. He will do 6 claw attacks, a left and a right one. A tank has to be inside of the red AoE for each one of them. If there is no tank inside the claw AoE, he will start casting Furious Crush, wiping your raid. The claws will reduce the healing taken by the tank by 33% for each stack. So when the tanks have 3 stacks they will be immune to healing, but you can still use shields on them. He will cast 1 Gaze on each platform. This will be cast on the tank that has aggro. It will spawn a small AoE that deals very high damage. Have it spawn as far away from the raid as possible, because it will move slowly towards the raid. This AoE deals about 20k damage per tick. After 6 claws and 1 Gaze, he will do an emote saying Matrodrome flies into a rage. This will destroy the platform and kill everyone on it. The easiest way to avoid this is to count the claws. Once he is casting the 6th claw, everyone needs to run out when he is halfway through the cast. At this point you will need to run to the next platform. While you are running to the next platform you should get a buff called Existential Sphere. This will make you immune to Event Horizon until you reach the next platform. Remember that you can DPS Threngar that is standing in the middle while transitioning to another platform. If you have someone dying during the transition phases, do not res him on the outside, he will die to Event Horizon on the next tick. Only res people inside of the white safe zone. You will have to repeat this on 6 more platforms until you reach phase 4. In phase 4 you will fight Threngar again. He has the same abilities and mechanics as in the first phase, but now he will also cast Freezing Void on the tank. This is the buff that slows you and makes you drop AoEs. His ability Voice of Threngar will now also do a raid-wide knockback. And in the last phase you will need to purge him a lot more, as he will be casting Nightmare Conviction about every 15 seconds. And inside the blue circle in the middle of the platform, there will be damage from Gateway of the First Nightmare. Don't get inside of that. And that was the list of his abilities. Let's go see how many of those are actually working. So I have the raid standing inside of the green AoE, and stand behind the boss at all times. As soon as you pull, start draining his mana. The player who gets the stacks of Conduit of Matrodrome needs to step out of the green to be dispelled. This is Sacrificial Offering, interrupt that. You can see the damage from cleansing the conduit is quite high. This is Shadowglaive, this deals a lot of damage and applies 1 stack. He has Nightmare Conviction now and needs to be purged. Again, he will only apply this once in the first phase. This is Voice of Threngar. He will get 1 stack of debuff, and you need to go to the green to dispel it. Dark Binding, this is the Meteor you need to stack up to shatter damage. Manifest Horror, he's now summoning the 3 ads. Condemn, this needs to be reflected. You can see him trying to channel Consuming Darkness now. Make sure he is drained. If he is not drained, it will do a lot more damage and he will actually keep on channeling. Scream of Damnation, this is the AoE that can be reflected. And that's all there is to phase 1, speeding up to transition. Getting close to 75%, 3 of us are running to the red AoE now, while the rest of the raid steps out of the green. Be quick to pick up the Aquan monstrosity that spawns, and get ready to interrupt him as he can start casting as soon as he spawns. You will need to rotate AoE cleanses now and keep the boss interrupted, while the players buff with Start of Wrath kill the boss. Remember this phase you cannot get inside the blue AoE in the middle, or get more than 40 meters away from Threngar standing in the middle. Once the monstrosity is dead, this phase will end and you will need to move to the first platform. The tanks will need to pick up Metrodome and the Abyssling, while the DPS and the healers stack near the fracture of Threngar and start DPSing it. Remember to keep the Abyssling facing away from the raid to avoid raid damage. So one tank needs to stand in the left claw and the other one needs to stand in the right claw. Depending on when the boss is doing the gaze, your stacks might even reset before this platform is over. He's now casting gaze on the tank who has aggro. Make sure you place it as far away from the raid as you can. And that's what the gaze AoE looks like. You can also do it the way that I'm showing on the video now, but I like it better to have a tank on the left claw and a tank on the right claw, especially since your stacks may reset during one platform. Now once the 6th cast is halfway through, you need to go out of the platform to avoid getting one-shotted by Furious Crush. Remember that the Abyssling is still cleaving, so keep him facing away from the raid while moving. The Abyssling can also be stunned and squirreled. While running between the platforms, you can still DPS the Threngar standing in the middle. They share the same HP, so it doesn't matter if you DPS the fragment or the real Threngar. And you will have to repeat this until you have passed all 7 platforms. I will speed this up until the last transition. Also be careful that if you have good DPS and push Threngar below 20%, Metrodome will just disappear and so will the platform that you are standing on, so you will end up dying because you had too much DPS. Should this be the case, you can still try to time it and push the phase after an event horizon tick, or just slow down your DPS and don't push the 20% before the phase is over. That is entirely up to you. This is the last platform and you can see us tanking one tank in the left claw and one tank in the right claw. Once this platform is crushed, have your raid move back to the green AoE again. The tank needs to make sure that he has aggro on the boss before Threngar activates. If the tank doesn't taunt the boss, Threngar will drop the AoE on the DPS with the highest threat, and that will probably wipe your raid. Again, this is the same as in phase 1, plus knockback and AoEs on the tank. The way I tank him is I pull him as close to the green as I can, and I get knocked back forming a line away from the raid until I die. In this phase he will cast Nightmare Conviction about every 15 seconds, so be ready to purge it really fast. And remember that in this phase you cannot get inside of the middle of the platform, or you will take damage from Gateway of the First Nightmare. On 4 stacks of Shadowglaive the other tank will swap, and he will get knocked back forming a line next to mine. Remember, when one of the tank dies, he will still be dropping the blue AoEs, so resurrect him outside of the raid. The last phase is really messy and is all about surviving, so try to make the best out of it. Be careful with the cleanses, it's better to lose one person that doesn't get cleansed than failing on the cleanse and wiping the whole raid. And that's it guys, good luck on your kill! I will add the Karul alerts that I have for this fight in the video info, so make sure you check that out. Please smash that like button if you enjoyed this video, and make sure you subscribe for future uploads. And as always guys, thanks for watching!